So let's talk about trios, and specifically, of course, our golden trio, who is finally really showing up now that we're past that really introductory phase to Hogwarts. So the chapters I'm looking at now are the Midnight Duel, Halloween, and Quidditch. And while these are still, again, like the entire book, they're introducing us to the world, particularly when you look at Quidditch. That's an introduction to the world. The Midnight Duel's sort of a big wham plot, or at least the first really big one where we get a hint that there's something going on here. Because you get little hints, like Dumbledore saying don't go into the third corridor, and how Harry and Ron get in trouble with Filch when it turns out they were accidentally trying to. But like, when Fluffy shows up, you're just like, what's going on? And I think it's really neat how we're then actually building up these three kids to form a friendship. Because of course when they, like in the Midnight Duel, they are not happy with Hermione and Hermione is not happy with them. And both of them have very good reasons to feel this way. Well, all three of them. I'm talking about the boys on one side and Hermione on the other. Because in truth, both of them in a lot of ways are in the wrong. Simply because Ron and Harry are in the wrong insofar as they are breaking the rules and they're doing something potentially very dangerous that they know they shouldn't and they can get hurt very badly. Hermione knows all this, but she is going about it in the really wrong way of actually then trying to fix it, help address the issue, because she's going in very much like she can't be wrong. And that's not any way to communicate with a child. The moment that you, even if they're the same age as you, the moment you communicate to a child, in particular, this can happen with everybody, but the moment you communicate with a child that there's no way that they can possibly be right, you're going to shut down any conversation and any relationship that you can possibly have right there. Because even if they're wrong in that moment, and they can recognize they're wrong in that moment, they're going to make the assumption that you're pointing it out simply because they can never be right around you. This happens with the spell, Wingardium Leviosa. Because Hermione has done this very aggressive, I'm right, you're wrong, I followed the rules, you're going to get us in trouble, it's all your fault, and then then when she very helpfully corrects Ron, again, a little more aggressive than maybe she should, but she is doing it to help him, he doesn't take the advice. Why? Because she's been very degrading to him and Harry. So of course he's not going to take that advice. He's not going to take anything from her seriously. Until he's willing to give something, even though she hasn't yet returned something. So that's how the trio actually happens. Basically, the boys and Hermione butt heads a bunch. And you see this really clearly in the Midnight Duel. And Neville's fun times along for the ride. Three-headed dog, and again, even when Hermione thinks she's giving them interesting information, she's doing it in an aggressive manner. So no, they weren't looking at his feet, they were looking at its heads. This is logical. Don't act like it's not. Don't act like you noticing the trapdoor was something that everybody should have noticed. They were looking at a three-headed dog. So no, Hermione is approaching this situation wrong. Ron and Harry are too. They're not being the nicest people, particularly Ron with his comments in the chapter with Wingardium Leviosa. Like, this is not a good way to start a relationship until they're willing to be selfless within that relationship. So, literally, Troll shows up, Quirrell in a dead faint, and Harry says, no, we've got to help Hermione. Again, why? Like, why not tell one of the older students? But he makes the recognition that he didn't stop Ron's comments from earlier, and that's why Hermione's in the bathroom crying. And Ron goes with this as well, because he realizes this too. So the fact that they're willing to go into a more dangerous situation than I think even the Midnight Duel was, without really knowing what's going on, in order to help somebody who's previously been very rude and abrasive to them, is a selfless act. And Hermione recognizes this. She recognizes, you guys have been jerks to me this entire time, especially you, Ron Weasley, but you're in here fighting a troll, because I'm in here and I can't move. So then she responds with the selfless act of taking the blame from McGonagall. This is how we then get this relationship moving, where everyone, the complete trio, is able to recognize that sometimes they have to take hits by the other person or for the other person, people, in order to actually reciprocate a friendship. They cannot make the assumption that everything they're going to throw at a person is going to be perfectly okay. So what ends up happening is then we get the changed relationship in Quidditch, where their personalities haven't changed, but how they're responding to each other's personalities is working. Hermione is still rather naggy. Ron is still rather lazy and abrasive, and Harry still has no clue what's actually going on. But now that they've realized that all three of them can be selfless in some way and take hits for the other people, then they're merging together because they don't want the other people to take hits for them. They want it to sort of click so that they can work together to avoid taking those hits. And that's what happens in the Quidditch game. Literally, that's what happens. Harry's broom starts going crazy, and Hermione notices Snape and runs around and sets Snape's cloak on fire, which she, like, respects professors. But she doesn't want Harry to take that hit. So she uses what she can do to take that hit for him. And is able to then avoid taking a hit at all, because she just grabs the fire and goes. Like, Snape has no idea. Ron and Hagrid know, but they both shut up about it. So literally we're able to keep Harry safe and in the end even win the Quidditch game, because Hermione recognizes that her acting is going to be better than her inaction, which is exactly what the cycle we're seeing is. Harry and Ron realize their action in the Trolls is better than their inaction. And then Hermione, in a smaller way, realizes her even speaking up is enough. And then the fact that Ron and Harry were willing to then talk to her and communicate at the end of the Halloween and be her friend, which she hasn't had at this point in time. So then Hermione helps save them at Quidditch. I'm not saying that the friendship is purely they're helping each other out, but it is a really good proof of friendship when they are doing this without even thinking. Like, Hermione's not sitting there in that moment like, what are the consequences of me lighting Snape's cloak on fire if I get caught? No, she's like, Harry's gonna fall off his broom, and Snape's mouthing words and not blinking. It means they miss a few things, like Quirrell doing the same thing, but it's better than where they've been. And they will keep doing this action-inaction moment. And in fact, you'll see it. When the friendship tends to have problems, inaction is what you're seeing. So the fact that this relationship is growing and expanding in an active manner is really neat to watch. So, yep, I'm going to keep going. We finally got the plot smacking us in the face, and the Mirror of Erised is up next, so I think this is going to be interesting and also, in a lot of ways, maybe a little sad. So, let's go!